Hi, I'm Craig Waters, one of the elders at Valley Community Church in Lafayette, Colorado. Since we are unable to meet in this COVID-19 crisis, we as a church want to reach out to you at various points during the week with words of encouragement. Last week, a person asked me something that took me by surprise. They said, "Where is Jesus?" I asked, "What do you mean?" They said, "Well, we have this pandemic, so where is Jesus?" I answered, "There will be plagues, plural, and earthquakes, plural, prior to his return." He reiterated, "Then where is he?" There are times when people tell me that they believe in Jesus Christ, and I ask, "What Jesus is it you believe in?" You see, the problem is there are those who believe in a Jello Jesus. You know who Jello Jesus is, don't you? He's the Jesus that you can pour into any mold you want and have him come out any flavor you like. But for them, it really doesn't matter who Jesus is, just who they want him to be. The rude fact of reality is God is who he is. Jesus is who he is. Regardless what we want him to be, Jesus is who he is. And yes, it's a rude reality to a world lost in its own gods, its own assumptions, its own expectations, its own desires. It's true, isn't it, that too many of us want God to be who we want him to be. And any view that differs from that is rude and ugly in their minds. Why? We have the freedom to see him as we choose, don't we? Isn't that what American pluralism guarantees? The right to believe whatever you want to believe. But the rude fact is, the ugly fact is, God is who he is, not who we want him to be. Perhaps you're familiar with what Jesus told the Samaritan woman at the well as they talked. They had quite a discussion. Jesus said to this lost woman who thought she knew God, "God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth." That's John 4:24. Those who worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. Not spirit and assumption, not spirit and expectation, not spirit and whim, not spirit and personal ideology. No, those who worship him must do so in spirit and in truth. Now, why would Jesus say this? Because God is who he is. Yes, to many of us, this is an ugly fact. It's a rude truth. But the truth is, Jesus is who he is. God is who he is. And he is none other than who he is, regardless of what we think. When Moses was called at the burning bush to go back to Egypt and bring the Jews out, he asked what God was sending him to do this. And God answered, "I am who I am." That's the name that God told him was sending him back. God is who he is, and he is none other. It doesn't matter what we think. It doesn't matter what we want. It doesn't matter what we assume. The fact is, God is who he is. When we realize that rude, ugly truth, it changes our hearts. Who we are and how we from that day forward see God. It changes our expectations. How we literally relate to God. John, at the opening of his gospel, tells us that Jesus came to bring us the grace and truth of God. Listen to John. He is so telling. John 1:14. And the Word became flesh. God became flesh and dwelt among us. And we have seen his glory. Glory as of the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. Again, that word truth, truth as it relates to God. Beginning to see a pattern here? So who is the God you come to? Who is the God you pray to? Who is the God you believe in? I hope it's the one true God. Because only in him will we find rest for our souls and hope for tomorrow.